Okay, we have a lot of stuff here. Hello, my name is Kretz, and today we have another review of FREEWELL filter system. I've done quite a number of reviews already, and you see I still have some of this filter system, so we're going to be comparing today what are the peculiarities of each one, but mainly we're going to be concentrating on this one, the hybrid VND/CPL 3 to 7 stops. And I think this might be my lucky day, because this is looking like finally an ideal filter systems for my needs, for what I need for my shootings, you know, for what I do. But of course you can make up your own mind in course of this review, and I think it's going to be really interesting. So stay tuned and let's get started. Well, first, few disclaimers. This is an independent review. FREEWELL never paid me any money for doing this, nor they ever said a single word or requested anything how I should do it. So it's just my honest opinion, my pure and mere practice with these filters, and I just tell you as it is, what I like, what I dislike, and what I would like. And especially in the end of this video, I'll tell you what I would like to be added to these, which seems like ideal filter system, but there's something I would like to change to better it up. Next, if you just simply want to know what is ND, what is CPL, why you need them, and see a lot of examples, then go and watch my, what's the first one? This one. This was the first review that I did for FREEWELL filters, and this one. Just go and watch this review. I tell everything in details, and today we're going to be concentrating on not as much on picture quality or build quality, because it is all fantastic. The picture quality is beautiful and the build quality is awesome, so no problems about that. We're going to be concentrating on functionality, and if you're interested in the peculiarities of different types of filters, then watch this review and you'll get the information. And the last, I've already done the unboxing of this new filter system. Just go watch my previous video when I received the parcel and I, opened the box. Look what's inside and each and every part of the package. So I won't be telling you about this today. Just let's start and talk about what this filter actually presents by itself. Well, first, its versatility. It must be ideal, best of all, at the first glance. Of course, it has some cons and pros, but at first glance it looks really ideal. As I told in the previous reviews and in the unboxing, this is 3 to 7 stops. And as I shoot mostly videos outside, so I need actually ND to, bring down the light a little bit to complement my standard exposure to, for the filmic look and stuff. I actually need something around from maybe 4 to 6 or at most 7 stops. And these previous filter systems either had, the 2 to 5 stops and 6 to 9 stops, or it doesn't have VND at all. It has the fixed number, the fixed figure of the ND value, that it was fixed. So it was not convenient. And this 3 to 7 looks like being really ideal, and I'll show it to you later, of course, in the examples, and I'll show you the shooting outside with different lenses, with wide aperture and even wider aperture, and see if 3 to 7 stops is really enough. And next, that it combines CPL, circular polarizer filter, along with the VND, just in one system. Can you believe that? You don't need additional CPL to carry it with you, to lose it, to break it somehow or whatever. It's all in one. It's all fixed in the whole, package, in the whole system, in the whole rim of the filter. So now, why not? Why don't we just unbox and show it to you, and show, of course, the difference between at least these three. Well, this is my 4th review actually, so I still have 3 systems, and one I've already gotten rid of, but that was actually the most expensive, the most versatile, the most professional system, which I, in my YouTubing days, definitely do not need and use. So you can go watch that review of that beautiful, gorgeous, professional system, but I just don't have it right now with me. So we're not going to be comparing it to that, but I'll tell a few words as well. Now let's get all this system out of the box and just look at the principle of how it works. There's the main system here is like this. Oh, right, so that's the system, couple of rings and the very useful lens cap, and it also has this additional ring for more comfort using it. And now what we have in the other boxes, well, actually this first initial one, we'll just try to briefly compare it. It has the similar box, the square one with the hard edges, but the system looks quite the same. It's like really merely the same size or even a little bit bigger. But what's the difference? It actually has the screw mount already on it, so you need to screw it on the lens. So it has a fixed diameter, yeah, nice lens cap. And we have the internal filter here. Well, I've showed it all in my full review, but you have that, and on top of it you actually, oh, I magneted it right on the cap, so I need to unmagnet and unmagnet the cap and then magnet the filter. So yeah, it's comfortable, but it's big. You cannot use it with the lens hood at all because it's way bigger. Say this is the lens hood from my 16 to 35 now, which is right here, and this is from my 21.8. yeah, you cannot use it with the lens hood. So this is very versatile system because you can have CPL, you can have 2 to 5 stops, you can have 6 to 9 stops of light reduction here, and you can have the VND, all right, this is a base, you can have the mist filters and stuff. So this is really versatile, I say, but it's bigger and it's different, a lot of filters, a lot of elements you need to take care of, you know, and I don't like the square box as well. But anyway, just watch my initial review. This filter, this system is beautiful because it has the really nice colors and it has very good build. But this has 2 to 5 and 6 to 9 stops. And if you need something in the middle, you just need to swap filters back and forth. But this filters, I really like the pouch. This is the best I ever saw, and I prefer for any filter system to have these pouches. You see, you open the zipper, you open it up, and it's all in front of you. So this is brilliant. But it has the fixed ND value, so these are all separate small filters. Yeah, it has the where is it? The base ring, and on top of it, the base ring, and on top of it, you actually mount everything else. So what's comfortable? This ring is actually 82 millimeters, and I believe you can have additional stepping rings, but they will add some thickness to this ring and you'll have vignetting, and I showed it in my previous review. So it's kind of like for the fixed lens diameter, more suitable for that. It's very versatile, it has a lot of filters, but it's not versatile because it doesn't have VND, and it has separate CPL, and you can stack filters on top of each other, but you can have vignette due to that because it's gonna be a thick system and stuff. So, but it has the best pouch. I love this pouch so much. Why don't you do, guys? Please create separate pouches. I'm ready to purchase it separately for these filter systems. So it's good, it's nice, it's the same perfect build quality and fantastic picture quality. But what about this here, and why it's so comfortable and convenient and most useful for me personally, is that unlike this system, it doesn't have the fixed thread on it. Instead of that, we have different base rings, just like with this one, but here we have one ring and need 2 additional step-up rings. But here we have different rings for different diameters, and these rings are native. And that's the most important thing, because I've already screwed it on. This is 16 to 35 version 1, it has 77 millimeters filter thread. I've screwed it on, and what I need to actually attach the filter system to this ring, well, nothing but magnet it on to it. Right, so it's on, no problem, you can take it off. And I additionally ordered the 82 millimeter base ring, which is, well, it's not here, it's somewhere here, let me find it. Oh, come on. Oh, here's the ring. It's just the same ring which accepts the same filter system, but it's just has the 82 millimeters diameter thread. I just threaded on my 82 millimeters lens, and I simply can unmagnet it from here and magnet it to here. That's all. Just, you know, take off the lens cap and you're good to go. Very simple. So you do not need different system itself, filter system like this one for different lenses and different diameters, or additional stepping rings which can add additional vignetting. You just need separate stepping rings, native stepping rings that do not add any thickness. They are the same thickness, all of them are the same. So just from 77 to 82 and back. But in the beginning, you might have noticed that I unscrewed something from here. And this is these tiny screws here, you see on the sides. And that's the worst thing that I don't like about this lens, these little screws. Why do you need them? Well, first, they fix the filter in place. So I magnet this, but in order, well, it's not gonna fall. You see, I can even mess around with it. It's not gonna fall by itself. But in case anyone touches it, it's easily detachable. But if I screw these down, there's no problem. I can even hold it by this. It's not gonna fall. So if you need to fix it properly, you need to use the screws. And that's not all, of course. These screws are needed to fix your CPL setting, because the circular polarizer works when you rotate the system, the whole system. You just loosen the screws a little bit so it can rotate on the base mount, the base ring, and so you adjust the CPL, right? Then you can fix it right away. And then there is additional ring here, so you can actually adjust your ND setting from 3 to 7 stops separately from CPL setting. So it's really good. You can have CPL if you need it to take some photographs or whatever, and you can have NDs for long exposures or for standard video exposure if you need to reduce the light around. So very versatile. But these screws, they are so tiny. And they can be unscrewed totally. Yeah, you see, they could have done it that they have some fixing mechanism, some little details, so they do not detach completely. That's first. And second, you know, maybe getting rid of them altogether, but I'll talk about that in the end of this video. But as for now, this is really versatile. You can easily swap it from one lens to another. And it's really easily adjustable, both CPL and VND. It has really nice lens cap, and by the way, it has the additional cap. And I can't remember if any other systems that I tested have the additional cap. And why do you need that? Well, first, if you have two lenses like this, you can use it with the separate ring. Say I have two rings on one lens and on the other, and my standard lens cap will not fit this ring, but the additional cap will, because it's magneted. So first you can, you know, close it with this. But as well, it says A, you see, A and B side. So B side is for the lens. But with the A side, actually, if I take off the filter system and I have the lens cap here on one side, I can actually have this cap to the other side. So I can actually get rid of this box. Don't take it with me. Just throw this thing into my pocket. Just don't forget to screw the screws on, not to lose them. But actually, that is the system. With two caps, you will not scratch it, you will not damage it. They are metallic, beautifully made. Well, so I can actually like throw it in my bag and forget about this box. So the second cap actually comes in really handy. I also want to say a few words about this filter cap, which previously also had, with this system, it previously also had this ring, and it was useful for two things. First, it was useful for using with the lens hood, when you cannot take out the cap from inside of the lens hood. Then you use this ring and it's easy. But this system you cannot use with the lens hood, so the ring is very useful for the other thing, for fast operation. And how's that? Say you want to often close and open it. Take it off, take it on. Say you're shooting the rain, you want to take it on, take some shots and put it on, take off and on. Well, you understand. And how you do that? It's really easy. You have this ring and you say stick your finger in here then you unmagnet it and grab your camera. Now you can shoot. You don't have to waste your time by hiding this somewhere in your pocket or your backpack or whatever. It can stay on your ring. There's on your middle finger if you want. So this is really easy and really comfortable, you see? Very fast operation. And you can hold the camera and the lens, the filter cap is still there. But if you don't need it, you simply magnet it on, your hand is free, then back on. Now 1, 2. Yeah, very, very fast in operation. So this ring, still, as long as you cannot use it with the lens hood, it is still very useful for fast operation, and there's no necessity to hide this ring anyway. It can stay on your finger. Brilliant. But now, if we can adjust both ND and CPL, what should we do first? Because, you know, this filter system itself is just different pieces of glass that rotate, and the picture is compared from one to the other while the light goes through them. And so that's how the effect is reached. But what to adjust first? Well, I tell you right away. First, you adjust your ND and then CPL. And why is that? Because ND setting simply reduces the light from 3 to 7 stops, and that's all. It does nothing else. So if you evaluate the lighting around and you adjust your ND filter and get the proper lighting, the standard exposure or whatever you need, then you can play with the CPL and rotate the whole system. Just unscrew it and rotate the whole system. It's not that comfortable because the ND ring is actually quite stiff. That's good, first, because you will not mess around with it, and even if you bump into it, it's really hard to mess with the ND setting. But if you try to rotate it, the whole system rotates. So you either need to screw them down, right, the screws, then adjust the ND, then unscrew and adjust the CPL and stuff. But instead of that, you can just hold your lens so that you are touching your screws but not touching the ND ring. So I fix it with my fingers, then I can easily just hold these screws in the system in place with my fingers, and then with the other hand just adjust the ND setting. So say I adjusted the amount of light that I need, and then I rotate the whole system and adjust the CPL settings. So in this case I do not mess around with anything, because if you first adjust your CPL, right, and get the necessary polarization picture, and then you fix it, and then you try to rotate the ND ring, then you will mess up your CPL setting, that's for sure, and that you don't want to do that. So first adjust ND and then CPL. And one thing I want to point out separately is that all these systems and the other one that I reviewed earlier, they do not substitute each other. Well, actually, they are really different systems for different purposes. So it's up to you whether to choose that one that I don't have right now, the biggest, the clumsiest, the most expensive, but the most versatile system for cinematography, which has gradient filters and stuff. Yeah, that's the most versatile, but it's the most expensive, and it's the biggest of all. Or you can use simply for photography, you can use this one with useful pouch, with very thin filters, which you can use with the lens hoods. It's just a different type of filters for different purposes. Or this one, this is something in the middle because it has a lot of filters, CPLs, mist filters, NDs. But it has the fixed thread. You'll have additional stepping rings to use it. But it's quite versatile and it's very good. Or this is maybe the most versatile all in all, but it doesn't have the widest range. This has altogether from 2 to 9 stops indeed. This only from 3 to 7, but it has everything in one place. CPLs and NDs, and even the mist filters can be added on. It's versatile, it's all in one, and it has native rings. So they basically do not substitute each other. They are different systems, so you better make up your mind on which one is actually right for you. And I decided for myself, this is the best. And let me show you one small thing, but which makes good company great. And just to show you that the good companies always progress and they improve from product to product, is this little space here, you see? It may seem nothing, but it's actually quite important. With these spaces on two sides, you can easily take the box out. Well, it seems not a big deal, but it is. You see? Easy. Unlike with this box, you can find hard times taking it out. You just need to throw it like this. This is the earlier product, and this is the later product. So the company really improves. Tiny thing, but it makes the company great. And now let's get to the test. And first, I didn't test the diffusion filter thoroughly because I actually ordered one, and that is called, let me see, the Diffusion Glow Mist 1/4. That's a beautiful filter. It comes in a separate pouch, and there is the filter, and it's actually attached by just simply magneting it on top. Nothing can be easier, just magnet and unmagnet, that's all. I haven't tested it thoroughly outside in the street or in some other conditions because first, I've tested it thoroughly in the review of, I believe, either this lens, these filter systems, or in some other. So just best of all, just watch all my filter reviews from first one and gradually to the second, third and fourth, because they all have some progression in the narration in them. So I'll have the diffusion filter tests there, but here I'm just showing you right here on the screen just this bulb with the diffusion filter and without it, and you really see that this Glow Mist 1/4 filter actually softens the light, especially the bright points of light. It makes them halo around, makes a halo around them, and it makes them softer. And it also almost looks like a little eclipse here. So it's really, really beautiful, and I like it. And I want to test it outside, especially maybe in the night with the street lights one day. It's going to be beautiful pictures, like for photography, but for videography as well, for cinematography. For you filmmakers, the diffusion filter, I think, is just must have to get that filmic look, like that Hollywood movie look. So I actually ordered this one, and I really like it, and you see how it works, and it really works. So that's our brief test of the mist filter. Now, second, before we get into the serious tests of ND and CPL outside, I'll also tell you that I haven't tested CPLs thoroughly as well, because I've already done it in my previous review, so go watch it. This filter does not differ in any way, it's just the CPL, it works the same as previously. Beautiful, it works, no problem. But I'll still show you some tests right now on the screen, and that is with the wide-angle lenses. Just be aware that the polarization actually has its limits, and at the very wide angles, like you see here at 16 millimeters, some parts of the picture get polarization and some not. And if you rotate the filter like I'm doing right here, you know, this polarization pattern or zone actually moves across the frame, and some parts of the picture actually are left without polarization on this very wide angle. So just be careful. In some shots at a very wide angle, there may be something which is called cross polarization. So when some part of the picture is a little bit darker than the other. And first, it of course depends on the conditions that you are shooting, the lighting, the angle of view of your lens, and as well the angle at which you are located towards the sun. So just experiment with that. Turn away to a certain degree from the sun. Try and see if polarization fixes itself, or it gets away, or it disappears, or whatever. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is when you zoom in a little bit to a longer focal length, like I'm doing right here from 16 to 35, probably starting from 28 or maybe 35 itself, the problem actually disappears. From that, this zone of the polarization actually covers the whole frame. So if you zoom in closer than maybe 28 or 35 millimeters, there's not a problem. As you see, here I'm rotating the CPL filter, and you definitely see the difference in the picture, in the contrast, in the saturation, in the structure, in the texture of the clouds. The polarizer actually works, and the filter is beautiful, and it's really useful. But why I'm telling you that? Not only to show how the CPL works, but also to warn you that in the next test that you're going to be seeing in a minute, I wasn't aware of this polarization and cross-polarization test because I haven't seen myself on the flip out screen. I couldn't see in that really bright sunlight, so I didn't see myself on the screen, and I just didn't care about the polarization setting. I was only adjusting the ND so that to get the standard exposure in bright sunlight. So in the next test, if you really see the dark one or the other dark corner, that is not vignetting. Vignetting is when all the corners are darkened equally, and you'll probably see it in the test as well. And that is because of the focal length, maybe the filter system, but it's not the case today. And of course, the lens design, it may vignette by itself, just like this one. It's a very beautiful lens, but it vignettes like hell. And you'll see it. But in the next test, if you see just one dark corner, it's not the lens, it's not the filter itself, the diameter or stepping ring. It's just the cross-polarization, which I did not fix. That's my problem, that's my fault, and for that I'm sorry. So don't freak out if you see one dark part of the image. It's not a problem, just need to fix it via rotating the CPL ring. One other moment I want to mention concerning the circular polarizing filter is that it actually originally steals a little bit of light. So any polarizing filter actually reduces some light. That is the same reflected light. It gets rid of the reflected light, and so the exposure is less than normal. But usually the CPLs steal about 2 stops of exposure, right? 2 stops, it's okay. But here, as soon as this is the combined system with the ND, and the lowest ND setting is 3 stops, so just be aware that your polarizer already reduces the exposure by at minimum 3 stops, not 2 as usual. So beware that you'll have to compensate it either with the aperture or with the shutter speed or with the ISO. Well, anyway, not 2 stops like usually, but 3 stops reduced with this CPL. And the last warning before showing you the field test is that, oh my god, again, my fault, the shadow of a camera before my face. I've held the camera with this, actually this nice metallic tripod like this. I've been holding the camera in front of me. And as well, I couldn't see a thing on my flip out screen because it was really bright sunlight and I wore sunglasses and it was all reflecting and stuff. So I didn't see that I actually cover my face or a part of my face with the shadow from the camera and lens that I hold in front of me. So for that I'm really sorry. I tried to fix it by walking on the angle to the sun, but in many takes here in the next field test I actually messed it up and have a shadow on my face. Sorry. But now you better get some nice hot cup of coffee or a tea and put on something warm, because these tests are gonna be really, really cold. Now, let's go out in the fields. All right, I'm back to where I shot my previous review in the fall, and now it's winter, and believe it or not, it's about minus 20 Celsius. It's really, really cold, you see. But I'm not afraid of that. I was actually born and raised in such a region, so it's fine. And by the way, why today? Why in such coldness? And that is because actually it's the first bright sunlight that I see for the last 2 months. Believe it or not, it was really dull weather for the last couple of months, and I couldn't just test the filters really, because if there's no sun, no need in ND filters. And whoa, let's do this today. What I must tell right away is that the ND ring, you know, the ring that sets the ND level, actually froze quite much, and it needs really power, and the ring became really tight, and you have to apply power and strength, you know, to turn it. So the temperature actually affects it. It still works, it's just really tight. And of course, setting the CPL is really easy because it's just controlled by the screws and it rotates freely, but the ring for ND setting turned really tight in very cold weather. By the way, if you use cropped sensor systems like APS-C sensor with the crop factor 1.6 on Canons or 1.5 on Nikons and Sonys, the equivalent focal length would be about 10 millimeters, the equivalent to full frame 16 millimeters. So you will get the same result. And to prove that, just watch my previous review where I tested the filters both with full frame and APS-C. Well, I can actually barely see anything on this flipped out screen. Yeah, it's supposed to show me something, but the sun is so bright, it just blinds me. But in the previous take, I just noticed the, the shadow of the camera on my face, so I switched an angle a little bit. So, what are we about to test now? I was also wondering if the gear would work in such frosty conditions, and I'm pretty much sure in native Canon gear, which I already used in very cold weather, but I have a couple of third-party lenses with me which are not only interesting to be tested with the filters, but also to check if they're gonna work in such cold weather. So as you see, this is working perfectly fine, and this is a native Canon gear. This is 6D Mark II full frame camera and the EF16-35 f2.8L lens, the first version with the 77mm filter thread. And so as long as we're testing the filters actually, so I believe you don't see any vignetting. Let me see. You see the autofocus works and everything works, so the gear did not freeze. And why I'm so concerned, because previously I've had some third-party lenses tested and they actually froze, and in not such harsh conditions, but like -5, -10 at max Celsius, the autofocus just froze and wouldn't work. But this Canon gear, the native one, just works perfectly fine. And just be aware that my third-party lenses are actually in my backpack, and they now are cooling gradually, steadily from my place, But this lens has already been out in the cold for at least 10 minutes, or I believe more than that, while I was walking from my place to this place. So it's already froze, but it works just fine. And now, getting back to the filters, as you see, we're now having this beautiful V2 filter system, the hybrid one, and this is, I haven't even touched the CPL setting, just the ND. And as you see, what's the most interesting? Let me see. I can't see shit on this flip out screen, so we'll check it out on the full screen later. But as far as I'm concerned, you do not see any vignetting in the corners, and that was our most concern with the previous iteration. In my previous review, I was checking out the magnetic system, and it was vignetting. And to my surprise, it was vignetting with the bigger filter on a smaller lens thread. So I was using 82mm filter thread with the stepping ring from 82 to 77 and using it on 77mm lens. So it must not happen. Actually, the bigger filter must not vignette on a smaller lens. It's actually vice versa. If you use a smaller filter with a stepping up ring on a bigger lens, then of course it must be vignetting. But previously it was vice versa. And that was because those filters were actually really, really thin. That was beautiful because you could use them with the lens hoods. But the trade-off for that was the vignetting. And you could only use that system with the appropriate filter thread on your lens. But today, I don't see any vignetting. And here we are at a full-frame camera, and at 16mm you see the widest angle possible. And the company actually says that these filters should not be vignetting. It's at least up to 16 full-frame millimeters, which we are seeing is not the case. So it's actually working just fine, and I believe it's beautiful. And here we are at 5 stops. This is the 5 stops of ND. So it is beautiful because we have 2 additional stops. This is 3 to 7 stops. I was previously struggling with swapping those freaking filters. 2 to 5 stops, then 6 to 9. And the middle ground is always somewhere between the 5, 6, 6.5 and stuff. So in the bright daylight, it's been a nightmare swapping those filters. But now with 3 to 7 stops, this is just beautiful. I have, you know, the space to go darker. If the sun goes out, I can, you know, move it to -3. If it's somewhat brighter, but I can believe it could happen. This is really the brightest sun you can ever imagine with a clear sky. And I still have just 5 stops at 2.8. And I still have 2 more stops in case I need that. But that's not all. The lenses that I use actually don't have image stabilization, because they are really wide angle and they cannot be stabilized in lenses. And my old DSLR camera doesn't have the IBIS, so internal sensor image stabilization. But I actually prefer to use the electronic stabilization inside of the camera, and I showed it to you in my previous review. But just for the sake of test, you see, this is 16 millimeters on my straight arm, and it does not vignette as far as I see on the screen without stabilization. But if I turn the stabilizer on, just wait a second. Now we're on. It actually cuts off about 10% from each side. So if there was no vignetting, it's 16 full millimeters, so to say. It's definitely not going to be the case with the image stabilization. You see the picture is much more stabilized, but it's a little bit tighter. But anyway, it works fine, so I don't see any vignetting whatsoever, at least on my screen. But let's go a little bit harsher and try the faster lens here. All right, now here we are with the Sigma 20mm f1.8. So it's much brighter, over than a stop brighter, and hopefully, well, not hopefully, luckily, the autofocus still works. Yeah, I was afraid the Sigma wouldn't autofocus in such harsh, cold conditions, but it does. Yeah, the autofocus works. Well, we'll see if it's gonna last or not. But anyway, this is 1.8, 20mm. Of course, much tighter angle of view, but much brighter aperture as well. And I had to turn this ND ring to -7 stops. And it also gives me, let me see, the exposure right. It gives me exactly the middle of the exposure level on camera, and even 1/3 of yeah, it's not one ISO 100, it's actually 100, between 100 and 125, because from 2.8 to 1.8 there's actually 1 stop and 1/3 of a stop. So this is exactly true. Well, 1 stop would be, you know, f2, and f1.8 is additional 1/3 of a stop. So if this is 125, then this is that same additional 1/3 of a stop. So the lens works in the frost, and actually the filter works. So the 7 stops is really enough for a wide-angle lens to have 1.8 aperture and have the standard exposure, which is perfectly well. But that's the limit. If you have anything brighter than that, actually, you wouldn't go past that. This -7 stops is just the limit for 1.8 aperture. So if you want to use 1.4 or 1.2 lenses or even brighter, then you'll have to go for, you know, 6 to 9 stops or something like that. But for me, for vlogging, for these kinds of shots, for filming myself, this actually 20mm 1.8 -7 stops, and this particular filter 3 to 7 stops is just the best. I can use it with 16 to 35 or with this 20mm, you know, 1.8, and have a huge bokeh, you know, the shallow depth of field. And by the way, you be the judge if this has significant vignette or insignificant vignette, because this lens actually vignettes by itself, sadly. Because, you know, that wide angle and that wide aperture, it has a little bit of vignetting, but for these kinds of shoots I think it must be just fine. But previously we had a problem with additional vignettes because of the thick filter, because it was, you know, inappropriate for that. And now we have the 82mm filter with the 82mm filter thread lens, so they match each other, and I believe they must be just fine, at least for these kinds of shots. But once again, I have something, a bit of a cherry on the pie for you. Let's test some other lens. All right, now I'm actually here with the fisheye lens, the 15mm f2.8 lens, but this is in automatic setting with the f11, you see, because this is too bright for the lens. And of course, I would like to use ND filters to shoot this wide angle in this bright light. But I cannot do that because most lenses, most fisheye lenses, they don't have filter threads. They are just too wide. They have bulbous, you know, front element. And you just cannot use filters. But this particular lens, this is Sigma 15 millimeters 2.8. And I'm not sure if autofocus works. Yeah, it works. It is very, very slow, but autofocus really works in this cold weather. Yeah, it's focusing. You might not be seeing it really well because it's, you know, not shallow depth of field. At f11, the depth of field is very deep. But anyway, the autofocus works. So, back to this lens. It actually has a little bit of attachment, which works like, let me just show you. Well, that's what it is, you see. All right, that's a funny picture. But the autofocus, let me see. The autofocus works, really. I'm really surprised these all lenses can work in such cold conditions. But anyway, you see, it gives you there is an attachment, like a lens hood, which gives you this circular view. It is circular for photography, for 3:2 aspect ratio for full frame photography. But here you see the lower side and the upper side are a little bit cut down because it's 16:9 video. So, but it's almost circular. And what's good about that is that this attachment actually has the filter thread of 72 millimeters. So now I'm having 82 millimeters filter on a 82 to 77 native ring, plus additional stepping down ring from 77 to 72 for this attachment to the lens. And now I can have this circular fish eye look at 15 millimeters at f2.8 with the same -5 stops of exposure ND filter, and it works perfectly fine. But I found it really difficult to set it back from -6 stops when, you know, testing with the Sigma f1.8 to back to -5 stops for this lens. The ring really froze, and it was very hard to rotate it from -7 stops to -5 stops. But well, anyway, it all works, and so this is our test. The Sigma lenses just stood up the test, and the filter works, and these 3 to 7 stops just really proved it being, you know, the best for vlogging, definitely. Now we're back to 16 millimeters, and I just want to sum up. Everything works just fine, exactly as I would like it to work. Perfect. But the only thing I'm still concerned is these little tiny screws, you know. First, they're really small and they're really thin, so I'm afraid to not just to lose them but to break them. And the spares are actually not so cheap. Well, where's the focus? Find my face, please, now. So I'm really afraid, you know, to break them, especially in this cold weather. And second, they are silver, so of silver color, a really light color. And if I lose them here out in the snow, in the white snow, I would, you know, never find the silver screws. So that's my main and basically the only concern about this system, especially out in the cold, white, snowy, you know, winter weather. But all in all, these filters are just great. Now let's get to conclusions. You see, the system works, it's beautiful, beautiful colors, doesn't mess with the picture, with the sharpness or with the color rendition. By the way, this system actually says it has the true color. Of all the systems that I've tested, which were 4, only 2 of them said true color here on the box, which means it does not mess with the color at all. Say this one, the versatile magnetic system, actually messed just a little bit. It changed the color of the picture. You wouldn't actually notice it during the editing, it's not a big deal, but it still alters a little bit the colors. But this is really true color, so I'm happy to stay with it. But, of course, it has some flaws, and let me just list it, what I like and what I dislike. Well, first, what I like. Let's see my list here on my phone. First, of course, it's versatile, CPL plus ND. That's beautiful, because if I go outside and shoot my vlogs, my videos, I have ND. And if I need some CPL, just, I mean, just casually I see some nice picture, but I want to get rid of reflection from the surface of the pond or reflection from the car or something like that. I have it all in one. It's good. I don't need to forget my CPLs at home to cry about it later, having just ND. It's all in one and it's good. It's really, really useful. Then the next thing, of course, 3 to 7 stops. For me personally, it proved to be the best range. As you just seen in the test, it's good either for 2.8 or for 1.8 lenses, it's all good. If you use faster lenses, it might be a problem, but you'll rarely have it in, you know, bright sunlight for video stuff. Well, if you need it, of course, you have 6 to 9 stops here. But for my taste, this 3 to 7 stops is best of all, and it's all I need. And the last thing, but not least in any ways, it's the native rings. I absolutely love these native rings because I can easily swap the filter from one ring on one lens to the other, no problem. It's way better than having just single thread like here and add additional stepping ring which thickens the filter, which can lead you to vignetting and stuff. This is the best solution in my opinion, versatile and stuff. But now we're going to what I dislike, and this one comes from the other. Because of this system, you know, you need something to fix it in place. And not because of that, but because of the CPL as well. Not to mess around with the CPL, you somehow need to fix the rotation of the system. And that's when these little tiny screws come in play. And I do not like them at all. I really hate these little screws. First, because they get in the way. You can bump into them. They're very, very tiny and very thin. You can easily, I believe, I don't know how sturdy they are. I truly believe you can break them if you hit them really hard. So yeah, they fix the polarizer in place and they fix the whole system in place, but they are easy to bump into and they're really easy to lose them. And the company actually sells the spares, but I saw and they are not cheap. If you lose just one screw and one is not useful, it can still rotate and mess around, you really need 2 screws. If you lose one, or both of them, actually these spare screws cost quite much. They are not so really cheap. If they were really cheap, I would buy a set beforehand myself just to have a spares, but they are not cheap and that sucks, of course. So I don't like these screws, but I'm not sure if anything can be done about it because you really need to fix this. And but maybe there is a way around it, and that's my proposal to the company. I'm not sure if it's technically possible, but maybe we should get rid of the CPL right inside of this system. Maybe just do the ND separately, 3 to 7 stops ND, and have the CPL lens on top of it additionally. I'm not sure if it's possible because, you know, ND filter or CPL, it's already 2 lenses which rotate against each other, but if you add third lens for CPL, I'm not sure it's gonna work. I'm not technician, not specialist, I don't know how it's done. But maybe to get rid of these freaking screws, maybe we should do 3 to 7 stops NDs separately and maybe CPL on top of it, just as any other filter. This way we could get rid of these freaking screws. And the second thing that bothered me, it didn't bother me before when I tested this thing or the other, the biggest, the professional system, is that you cannot actually use it with the lens hood. I would like to use it with the lens hood, both for video and for photography, of course. And you can use this system with the lens hood because it's really, really thin, but you cannot use stepping rings with it because, you know, it's gonna vignette. It's not made for that. But, you know, these are just the dreams, and I'm not sure that they can be fulfilled. I would like to use this system with the lens hood and get rid of these screws. And on all the other hands, I cannot see, yeah, no other flaws in that. All in all, this is the best filter system that I've used, and I'm gonna stick with it. Not gonna use this or that because they are more complicated. This is simple, this is versatile, this is comfortable, and it proved 3 to 7 stops being the best. So that's my review for today. Thanks for watching. If I missed anything or I'm wrong in something, or if you want to add anything, just leave comments down below. Of course, subscribe to the channel and go watch my other videos on the channel. So Paul Kretz was here with you. I'll see you in the next videos. Or maybe not. It's up to you.